the replay viewers. So good to have you here. I get to have another really fun conversation, and with a play on words, I'll say delightful and delicious because I have a really amazing friend and guest with me here today by the name of Rhonda Ryder, and we're going to be sharing from our experience because, we have had our experiences, and based on hearing a lot of Rhonda's experience and just knowing mine, it's like they seem to be quite different than what tends to be considered like the norm, so to say. I've been talking a lot about breaking out of the norms as of late, and I feel like we've each done that in our own way. So we're going to be sharing about that, and the main thing being just how we stop stressing about food. Like I can remember like years and years and years where I was stressed out about like calories and fat grams and carbs and endless calculation. That was one phase. There was another phase where I became what's called, I believe, orthorexic, where I had so many nutritional rules about like what I could put in my body, like like all these rules. There were so many rules that it became like, what on earth can I even have for dinner? Because what what meals still actually like fit all these rules? So that's just to give you a taste from my experience. Be talking about we'll be talking about how we like let all that freaking stress go. Uh, so that's the idea, and I'll give Rhonda the opportunity to introduce herself in just a moment here. Just wanted to share real quick that if you're new to me, if you've never seen anything that I've created or produced before, uh, oh hi Catherine, welcome, 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 welcome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, if you'd like to chime in and offer any questions or comments while we're talking, please feel free. So happy that you're here live. And yeah, I was just going to say, if you're new to me, never seen anything I've created before, I'm a transformational coach, and that just means that I help people make really meaningful changes in their lives, like the changes that people really want to make. And a lot of times they just don't know the how, or they just don't have the courage. They don't have the, like I don't want to say willpower, but they just aren't able to move in the direction they want to move because they have a lot of these stories, you call them excuses or limiting beliefs, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of reasons why people don't let them live the way they actually want to live. And I help people begin to free themselves from those stories that hold them back from more of the life they actually desire. So it's really fun for me to watch people break free from their own kind of like, I'll say, silly rules that they adapted from culture that don't really feel like a fit, yet they accepted them anyways. And I'm saying that because that's what I did too. And as I've like broken out, I'm like, oh, that's also silly. It's also silly and repressive. So that, and then I also provide channeled readings, one-to-one channeled readings for people to help them find the clarity to their biggest life questions within. I help people get to the clarity about their own biggest questions of life about various life situations. So it's really fun to watch people receive that clarity and find relief by connecting with their own internal clarity as well. So that's a bit about what I do. And yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda so Rhonda can share a little bit about her and what she brings to the world. So whatever you'd like to share, Rhonda, and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I do love listening to you talk, Timothy. You're so soothing. So the
Thank you.
channeling, everything that you do, and I appreciate you coming on my podcast show uh, to discuss similar topic that we are discussing today. Uh, yeah, the discussion about all of that debate over the weight loss drugs and all of that. So, from a metaphysical point of view, that was really interesting. It was such a pleasure to speak to you on that. So, myself, I am the author of Delicious Alignment, how that's back there, how 25 women learn to love and transform their bodies using Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction. So I coach on that. I'm also I use a calibration method called the Mallison method that Gina Mallison created, and I use that in my coaching. I offer that, which I and I added a piece to it where I speak to your inner being because I feel that all the answers are within us, so all the answers are within you. And when I speak to your inner being, you experience getting all of, getting answers from within. So it just has such a huge impact when it's coming from yourself, the truth. And I coach specifically on the topic of loving your body and making peace with food. But then I wind up coaching on all different topics because it's all intermingled and it's all related. So we wind up talking about money and relationships, whatever is active in your vibration at the time. I also have a podcast, as Timothy mentioned, which is called Delicious Alignment and the Art of Abundance. You can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I think that's mostly what I want to say right now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing about you, just so people have some context. And yeah, I see your book there in the background. So yeah, and in the description, I've linked Rhonda's website, which is deliciousalignment.com, and so you can find lots about her book there. So as you see it, so nicely displayed behind her as well. And so yeah, I mean, this definitely is a something that I know that you speak about a lot, Rhonda, and it's been a big part of my life. Just, I mean, in a snapshot, like as a teenager, I experienced anorexia because I felt so terrified of life, and it felt like food was the one thing I could control. It was like in the, let's see, yeah, it started in the 90s when there was all of this hype about fat grams and calories and like all these diet magazines. And as a teenager, I got swept up in that. I was like, oh, well, here's something I can control. That lasted for a few years. I got tired of that. Then I became a bodybuilder and just like, it was all about the, counting everything to build muscle is kind of like the opposite now. And then after the bodybuilding, I got super into holistic wellness and I learned about all these like really healthy ways to eat, but each system has all these rules. And then that led to becoming kind of orthorexic, which is like there's so many rules that it feels like, what can I even eat anymore?
Mm,
And then I started to find food freedom. And so I definitely understand the stress about food and, like the racking the brain to be like, what can I eat and how much I can eat? How much can I eat? And then I finally started to find food freedom when I started to study channeled teachings, like the teachings of like Abraham Hicks and others. That's when I
mm,
really
mm.
started to like see food in a new light. Um, I feel like I already know the answer, but it's based on what I know, Rhonda, it feels like you know what stressing about food is like. Like I feel like you've been there.
Yeah, well, we've had lots of conversations about it, and so you know my story too. And yeah, I was a binge eater, and then I gained I gained a lot of weight. I was kind of thin, as a young preteen, and then 13, 14, I started to, well, more like 15, started to put on a lot of weight. I started binging on food then, and that lasted for a long time. It led to a lot of depression and beating myself up emotionally. So I struggled with food addiction and being obsessed with that. In my own words, uh, that's what it felt like. So I too began to find some relief from all of that when I started studying Abraham Hicks. And then I got this intuition, this strong impulse, nudge from the universe, whatever you want to call it, inspiration to write a book on the subject and research everything Abraham has to say about loving your body or weight loss. I was focused more on weight loss too, but and I interviewed 25 women. 25 women wound up in the book who had released 25 pounds or more. I don't like to focus on weight loss anymore so much, but that's where I was then, and I focused on that for the book. But really, what I learned from interviewing all these women was their journey was really an inner journey back to loving themselves. And so that's what we wound up talking about. That's what the interviews are in the book. And then the first part of the book is the steps. I took everything that they said, and then everything I learned from Abraham. I spent tons and tons of hours studying, listening to Abraham Hicks on the subject, and put it into 5 steps. So I started applying it, and I started releasing pounds of healing my relationship with my body prior to that, and then the writing the book began to unfold and get better and better and better. So where I am today, fast forward 5 years, is that I can truly say that I love my body. It's not 100%. I mean, I still have days where I go, oh my God, look, my thighs look like they're getting bigger again, or I still have those, but I know what to do now with those thoughts, and I embrace also, my body. Like my thighs was always my thing. Like, oh, look at my thighs, they're too big, and now it's like, let's celebrate this body. Let's not hide it. Like letting myself have pictures taken, and putting them, on Facebook or whatever. And like, yeah, it's okay to love your body at any size. I mean, that's actually one of my steps, to start a love affair with your body. And the I could talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
There's just, it's a journey. It's an unfolding, and
Yeah.
it's really a journey back to yourself, who you really are.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Totally agree. And just kind of referencing, well, thank you for sharing all of that, by the way. And then also referencing what Catherine's been showing in the chat. Yeah. So Catherine, I mean, I would say self-love is a big aspect of it. And, Rhonda just referenced that as well. And then also, so it's not just Abraham Hicks. Like I'm aware of other channeled teachings that also just talk about changing the relationship with food and with body. It's just, I mean, I know also like when it's pretty easy to find this stuff from Abraham Hicks. If I just go over to YouTube and I just type in like Abraham Hicks food, or like Abraham, I'm sure if you do like Abraham Hicks weight, I'm sure there'll be a bunch of videos come up, because, Esther is very generous in that everybody and their 12 companions can all record 15 minutes of a live conference and share it wherever they want to. Like Abraham and Esther are very generous in that way. So there's tons of stuff on like almost every life subject on YouTube. So uh, what I feel though is the main thing for me, and I'll give you a chance to reflect as well, Rhonda, is like the biggest thing is like the resistance. Like a lot of these rules that we learned about food and our bodies and our self-image from society and culture, I would say, mostly Western. That's what I'm familiar with. I don't know really how it works outside of Western culture. But in Western culture, like there's just a lot of judgment. There's a lot of like, I need to fit in. There's a lot of, I need to be perfect. There's a lot of like, I'm only sexy if, there's all of these rules and like, these shapes and forms that we're told like, be that, and then you'll be acceptable, and then you'll get the kind of attention that you want, and then you'll fit in and stuff like that. So I just feel like a lot of these strict rules and kind of like, be this, it can create a lot of resistance, because when people don't feel like they fit that, or they're desperately trying to fit it and it's not working, like that can bring up a lot of shame. It can bring up a lot of
Mhm.
like turning on oneself and creating a lot of stories. And as creators of our reality, the stories that we say hold tremendous power. So this is a thing that I feel that most of the world doesn't know yet. And I'm just not afraid to say it, that like as creators of our reality, like the stories that we tell, like that's basically giving instructions to the universe. Our stories that we're telling over and over, and the universe supplies evidence. So if we don't feel we fit in, and now we're telling these really harmful stories, hurtful stories, like self-sabotaging stories about ourselves, about our body, first and foremost, it'll feel, this is just, based on all of my understanding of vibration and energy. If we're telling those kind of like hurtful, harmful stories, in the moment that we're telling them, we'll feel kind of awful, because they're not in alignment with our inner being. Like they're not based in love, they're based in judgment and talking down to ourselves and being really critical. Like that's not aligned with our inner being. It's not wrong, it's just not aligned. And when we're not in alignment, our emotions tell us by causing us to feel off. That off feeling is like, hey, this isn't an alignment. Like, you can keep doing this, but just so you know, it's not in alignment with who you really are. It's not in alignment with love. And so, as a launching off point, what I'll offer up is that it's just a lot of resistance, like a lot of resistance towards ourselves, towards our body, towards our body parts. Rhonda mentioned the part of her body that she's really focused on in terms of like really bringing more love to that area of her body. So it's all this resistance to our body, but then also the resistance to food, like with the stories like, you know, these foods are bad for me, these foods are going to cause me harm. It's like, as conscious creators, uh, as we tell these stories, as we tell these stories about our bodies and food, we actually are asking for more evidence of the stories. That's just the way it works based on my understanding of energy and vibration. And so maybe we can touch a little bit more into the emotional eater thing in just a moment here, Catherine. I just want to give and thank you for sharing that so vulnerably. I just want to give Rhonda an opportunity just to, if she wants to like respond to anything I just
Oh
said
my
in her
gosh,
own way.
well, where do I start? You just shared a lot of stuff and touched on
Yeah,
so many important topics.
yeah,
Um, you know, creating a new story, that is step 3 in my book. So yes, absolutely, the stories are very, very important. And I just want to touch upon, as a woman, we have a lot of pressure to look a certain way, but it's interesting to talk to men as well and find out they have the same stuff. Many men have the same issues going on, wanting to fit in, wanting to look good. It doesn't necessarily hit on one gender, but I know for me personally, yes, wanting to fit in, not having so much shame because I didn't look a certain way, even though in the 1950s, before I was born, women there was even more pressure. And as time has gone on, there's more and more acceptance of different body shapes and sizes. It's still so prevalent in our society to look a certain way. And so there's a lot of pressure there. And I remember just having all of that shame because I wanted to look like my friends, my girlfriends. They were all skinny and gorgeous. And then I all of a sudden gained all this weight. And then it was like this unspoken shame. Nobody ever really mentioned it, but I would overhear comments once in a while, even from family or friends talking about my weight. So it's a thing, but it was mostly an inner job where I was sabotaging myself, saying just really the inner dialogue, like you said, it was not in alignment with what my inner being, how my inner being sees me as beautiful, and it doesn't have those negative thoughts, right? So that's one thing, and the other thing about creating stories is so that's one of the steps, and it's just like writing down for an exercise in my book is writing down what are the stories that you're telling yourself. And with working with people, you can see something. It's so almost subconscious, like we don't even realize we're telling ourselves these stories. It's such a habit that we've been telling for years or decades, like, oh, you're too fat, oh, you're too this, oh, you don't, you're not good enough, whatever. And so, like, you may not even realize the stories that you're telling yourself. So, just beginning to train yourself to listen to the things that you're saying or the things that you're thinking. And that will give you clues to the beliefs that you are harboring, these beliefs that are actually, just like you said, Timothy, giving you more and more evidence of the story that you're telling. So, changing first, you want to identify the story, because a lot of times we're, like I said, we're not even aware of the story that's running our lives. So you want to identify it, and then you want to start to create a new story. But when you create a new story, you want it to be one that feels good. It's not too far reaching that you can't really align with it. It can be like a general story, just something that feels a little bit better. And so you kind of work your way up to creating better and better, more empowering stories. So we just start with little tweaks to the story to where you can start telling yourself, having more productive self talk.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for diving in on the stories even more because yeah, it's so important. Like, my higher self, or you could say the guides, my life guides that I channel, like they've said point blank, like your story is everything. Your story about anything is everything. Like they don't, you know, my soul guides, you want to call it, like they don't apologize. They're just like your stories are the most powerful thing. Like so, just like you said, just be aware of the stories you're telling and just notice if it's the story you really want to be telling because they're powerful. Uh, Real quick, I do just want to give us both an opportunity, maybe just to reflect on something that Catherine shared, and then I do also, after we do that, I would love to circle back around to releasing resistance because I just feel there's a little bit more that we could go into there because I feel like that's
Mhm.
so important too. Just like I feel like that could be a really great step one is like identifying the resistance and then seeing the opportunity to release it. So we should be able to circle back around in a moment. Um, oh, Catherine says, I see myself shifting in my power and that feels so good. Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I did just want to give each of us, Ron and I, just an opportunity just to share based on something you mentioned a few sentences ago, Catherine. It's about being an emotional eater. And so before I share just my perspective, I just want to say like this is just my experience. When I'm sharing, I'm never telling anyone what they should do, anything like that. I'm just saying this is what I've learned in my own human journey. And I just share because what I learned may offer some new perspectives. So that's all it's really for. Just here are some perspectives that maybe you've heard before, but maybe haven't heard in a while. So it's just sharing what I've learned for me. It's not ever telling anyone what they should do or what works or anything like that. It's just what I learned. So in terms of emotional eating, what I learned for me is that for me, it was anytime I was doing thing as an emotional response, it was a coping mechanism. And a lot of times it was because I wasn't comfortable feeling certain feelings. So, and this isn't anything brand new. This is talked about a lot in just self-development and even like the emotional healing circles is like when I was like, oh, these emotions, like these flutters that I'm feeling, like, I don't know if I feel safe enough to feel them, so there was kind of like resistances to certain emotions. That's when I would go to the cabinet and just be like, what can I eat that'll be like a almost like a pacifier in a way, like it'll soothe me. But if I eat something tasty, if I have like a warm cup of cacao, it'll help me like soothe myself because I'm basically in resistance to these emotions. I don't feel safe enough to feel them. That's what I learned. That's what I would see is that when I had like, oh, I don't know if I can feel this stuff. Like I'd be like, okay, like, well, let me distract myself and eat something. That's just what I learned. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I had to determine for me, like, do I want this to be something that keeps going on and on and on? Or do I want to find a way to get more comfortable with emotions and feel safe in my body to feel things? And there's a lot of different ways that that can be approached. And I don't feel like we'll get into all of that. I'll just say for me, I became curious enough to find the ways that I was able to better allow these emotions to feel them in a way that felt okay for me. And when I got to that space, then all of a sudden I stopped seeing myself go to the pantry to try and, soothe myself. That's just what I learned for me. So, um, anything that you might have learned for you on this, Rhonda?
Oh yeah, you opened up a can of worms now, in a good way. In a good way. I mean, yes, absolutely, absolutely. I was an emotional eater as well. To Catherine's comment and your comments, and for me, I was pretty aware of what was happening because my dad was an alcoholic, and I was very aware, like he was self-medicating with alcohol. He wasn't like a mean drunk or anything, but he was just, we'd just like pass out. And he was emotionally unavailable basically because he wasn't there when he was home. He was just something was going on, right? He was either depressed or or passing out. So for me, alcohol didn't do anything. Like I had no desire, for alcohol, but I turned to food. And so I was very clear, I think, that I was turning to food because I didn't want to feel my emotions. And sometimes it was like so automatic that I just found myself in front of the fridge just eating a whole bunch of food, and before it even registered what I was doing. It was just like automatic, like feel an uncomfortable emotion, don't want to feel it, go to the fridge, eat, bring more food to my room, and just keep eating till I was sick. And that was way I'm not to feel my emotions. So yeah, I was very, very clear on that. And looking back, I could see that's what happened. So yes, when I began to learn to process my emotions, and that's why I love the calibration method so much, the Malison method, um, because we process the emotions. I think Catherine mentioned the word processing. Yeah, we process the emotions. And sometimes with the teachings of Abraham Hicks or other teachers, we think that we're not supposed to feel these emotions. We're just supposed to pivot, change the subject, and not feel the emotions. Just don't feel the negative emotions. And now, I think, in my experience, like dealing with the resistance, dealing with the emotions, is a gift. It's a beautiful thing because that energy wants to move through your body. We don't want to dwell in it forever, but we want it to be that anger or that frustration. It wants to be seen. It wants to move through your body so that it can move on. And just okay, all right, we're moving on. Great, but we need to be sort of felt or acknowledged first. So like for me, if I can if I can pivot real easily, say my husband says something to me today that annoys me. I get a little charge and I'm like, oh, I'm frustrated. But I can soothe myself. I can pivot. I can have some inner dialogue that helps me feel better right away. Great. Wonderful. But in those times, which are less and less and less now, it doesn't really happen that much when it's like really got me going. I'm really upset. Um, I might go get a calibration, or I might self calibrate myself, or I will, if I can't just pivot or change the subject or feel better in the moment, then there's another perhaps process that I want to do to help me, to support me in processing that emotion. So I'm always looking at what feels better right now. What feels better right now? I'm looking for a better feeling thought or some relief. But I no longer just suppress these emotions and pretend they don't exist. I feel like that's kind of what was happening is I don't want to feel these emotions. So I'm just stuffing my face because it's a way of me not dealing with the emotion.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And then I just wanted to add in that Catherine said, yes, everything was swept under the rug growing up.
Yeah.
And Catherine also said, yes, I'm not processing my emotions. You're so right. So thank you for sharing that you're seeing the value in feeling your emotions. Because, yeah, I do. I'm just going to say that I've found the same thing because I did. Yeah, you're so welcome, Catherine. I'm glad that you're.
Yeah.
Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. So glad that you're here. It's really fun
Yes.
when there's interaction. So thank you. Uh, and yeah, I'm glad that we're speaking about this because I've studied a lot of high vibrational teachings as well, and um, it's like I've heard it said it all comes down to the interpretation, right? It's like there's different ways that things can be interpreted, and the one thing I will say is that like Abraham does talk about the full emotional spectrum. Like Abraham will talk about like everything from hatred to rage to anger to frustration. And, and Abraham will give tools like, well, wherever you are is wherever you are. And just, there's ways you can move yourself back up the emotional scale back towards, balance and all this stuff. So I just want to give Abraham credit that they do talk about the full spectrum of human emotions. And, they do offer ways where here's how you can start to move yourself back towards feeling better. And also I had this approach for a long time, just like it's the whole like feel it to heal it, phrase that I feel like you were just talking about so well. And after exploring, I've explored a lot of different approaches to just being a human, energy, vibration, and I've actually come back to what you were just talking about is that, yeah, like just feeling this stuff also is what's working the most for me because I was actually getting an image when you were talking, like, you know, those, whatever those like poppers are that they like pop, pop and confetti comes out of them.
Mhm.
Like I was getting this image, it's almost like these emotions that, and I'll just speak from my experience, that I never allowed myself to feel earlier in life because, again, there were stories like if I feel this emotion, it makes me a bad person. If I feel this emotion, there's something wrong with me. Because I grew up in a very like strict environment where there was a lot of, religious rules about what we could feel and what we couldn't feel.
Mhm.
And so like I wanted to be a good person. So there was a lot of things I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel that. And so I can see how I shut down a lot of things. And so the image I got was like almost like this confetti of emotion wants to just like blast off and release. And this is probably the case for a lot of us. We all have these different rules where like, I can't feel that. So it's like we went reaching for all the confetti and like stuffed it back down and stuffed it back down. Like, I can't feel this. I'm not allowed to feel this. I'm not supposed to feel this, or I'm a
Mhm.
bad person if I feel. And so like over and over, we just like stuffed it back down, stuffed it back down. So and like you said, all this energy wants to do is just like move. It just wants to like move through and like move on and out. And so I can feel like, uh, let's see, Catherine says, it feels like my feelings and emotions aren't valid, that I'm not heard. Uh, yeah, well, thank you for saying that because what I've been seeing, and again, I'll let Rhonda share from her perspective, what I've been seeing for me that's been helpful is like, I'll just kind of like for my context, I'll kind of like relate to my inner child. Like I've been learning how to hold space and just hear things from the perspective of what I'm gonna call my inner child that just like felt really frustrating growing up. It's like, I'm so frustrated I can't be like this. I'm so frustrated that I'm not allowed to be myself. I've been, for me, holding space, just hearing some of these frustrations and just giving them some air to like rise. Like Rhonda said, not getting lost in them, not letting them take me into some loophole where I'm now like consumed by them, but just, I can hold a lot of space for myself, but just listening to like, like, yeah, that was frustrating and that was frustrating. And what it all kind of comes down to for me is my inner child is like, can I just finally be myself now? Like, is it okay just to be? And if I feel something weird, am I allowed just to feel it and let it move through? Kind of like, I see this with little kids, like I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and when they get upset, they, like, they'll just kind of be like, "Rah!" and they like let it out, and then 2 seconds later they'll be like a bunny, and then they're like, like they
Mhm.
don't. I think they're great examples because I don't. Sometimes if they're really having a tantrum, and they tell stories too. Once they learn how to think, they can tell stories too. Like, oh, it's not fair, and they can get lost in it for a little bit. However, I do see a lot in the children I'm aware of how even though they might get kind of like lost in something, like why they're really sad, they can see something that all of a sudden they'll just snap right out of it. All of a sudden they'll be like, "Whoa, that's cool," and then like all of the heavy stuff just goes away. Like, so I'm just using examples, just again like how we can feel it. We don't have to get lost into it, and when we do feel it, it seems like it is easier just for something else to help us shift. That's just what I've been seeing based on kind of
Mhm.
watching the kids in my life. What do you feel about anything you want to add, Rhonda, or reflect on?
Yeah. Yes. I think it is like returning back to almost like a childlike state in terms of when you're a child, your relationship with food is very natural, and you eat when you're hungry. I mean, in most cases, you eat when you're hungry, you stop when you're full, you get excited about what you're eating, and then you move on to the next thing. So I think that's part of I love working with people and helping them get back to that childlike state because many of the women that I work with, we've been dieting, myself included, like dieting for decades. We don't even know how to eat. We don't know how to have a natural relationship with food. And I think that, to your point, mastering our emotions is the name of the game. And I'm on this journey of learning how to master my emotions. Uh, we're all on the same journey. We're all on different pieces, parts, places in that journey in our own unique way. And being able to process our emotions, to use Catherine's word, yes, that is the journey. That is the journey, not just stuffing it all down, no pun intended, but actually, experiencing our emotions. There are no good or bad emotions. And um, I love the fact that I no longer am obsessed with food. I feel that I have made peace with food. I have returned to my normal childlike behavior, relationship with food. So I know it's possible. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work, is because I want to share it with others. Um, it is possible, and everyone's journey is different. One person might be guided to take a weight loss drug. We were talking about that. Like, it's really each person's own journey. Like, I don't think I would ever take a weight loss drug, just because that doesn't resonate with me, but not judging other people's choices and journeys. So somebody might choose, like, going back to Weight Watchers or doing keto, and it's really an individual choice, or just not do any of that. I never really, I don't know, I never was a calorie counter, because I knew, because that just would make me nuts, trying to cut, but really, like, for you, you were guided to that at that time. Like, for me, I tried it, and I just tried it again, and I tried it again. I could never do it, because it just made me, like, feel like, because I would fail every time. Like, if you tell me you can't have that, you can't eat that, well, I'll show you. I'll show you. I'm gonna go eat the whole thing. I'm gonna eat the whole box. I'm gonna eat the whole bag. Like, any kind
Sure.
of restriction on me just made it, like, 100 times worse. So now, you know, my relationship with food is just, I eat when I'm hungry, pretty much stop when I'm full for the most part, and I just celebrate food. I just
Yeah.
celebrate it. I appreciate it. And I was always embarrassed to celebrate it, because, oh yeah, of course she loves food. Look at her. Well,
Mm.
now it's like, no, I don't do that anymore. I don't do that to myself anymore. It's like, I love food, because
Yeah.
I have talked to so many, like, quote unquote thin people who love food just as much as I do. It's normal to love food. Oh, who knew? Why didn't I get the memo? It's normal to love food and appreciate food and enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
So, yes,
Yeah.
so much to unpack. Gosh, it's just a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you started to bring that forth. I would love to get more into what we both found, because we have kind of like dove in a little bit on some of, the struggles, so to say. Before we kind of share more about what we found, I just wanted to also just say hello and thank you to Vanessa and Jill for watching live, and thank you for your comments. Thank you for, yeah, your comments. And I just wanted to reflect, as and Jill says she's watching from the Denver airport while devouring her fabulous favorite Einstein bagel and sandwich. Like, that sounds so good. I feel like my taste buds are already salivating. So good for you for enjoying your favorite bagel sandwich. And I just wanted to, I feel like Vanessa's comment is a good segue to what we've both found just in our relationships with food and our body. Because Vanessa says, I'm thoroughly enjoying getting to know me after years of being numb and shut down. I found the connection to source, and channeling has opened up the love inside of me, and I'm gently nurturing myself and the energy and enjoying the journey. So first I just want to say I'm so happy that's the case for you, Vanessa. That's amazing. And then yeah, like I feel like, it's interesting. I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and what I've heard is that, like a lot of people, like a majority of people recognize that there is a higher connection to something. And, different people have different things they call it. Some people that were raised in religion don't really like the God term, but they'll say like higher power, or just like, so I have seen that a lot of people do actually believe in a higher power, but what they call it, again, that can be individual. And so I love that just Vanessa, what she calls it is source, or like, like the creator energy is the way I translate that. She's found that that exists within, inside of her. That connection's
Mhm.
inside of her, and she's reconnecting with the love that that connection presents. And she's sharing that as she's found the love from that source creator energy within her, it's she's really enjoying this journey to sounds like no longer be so numb and shut down. So I'm really happy that's the case for you, Vanessa. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I'm so happy for you. So yeah, on that note, yeah, it feels like I know you started to share a little bit, Rhonda, but yeah, it's just feeling like, yeah, now why not share what food, a little bit more about what food in our relationship to our body is like now. I'll just give myself a break and, and recoup my energy. So I'll turn it over to you, let you share a little bit, and then I'll share a bit about what my experience is like nowadays.
Okay, yeah. Well, I just yeah, hello Jill. She's she says, "I love food." Yes, yes, celebrating food is I love celebrating food, and I know Jill, and we've had conversations about this many. It's just such a beautiful thing, and she's one of those people. Yeah, I remember just I think it was Bahamas, just going around. We were on a cruise and eating different, having a meal with her is so delicious because she just loves food and just unapologetically. And it took me a while to get there. Really took me a while to get there, but I'm very thankful. And like you, I have learned from other teachers as well since studying Abraham Hicks. I still love Abraham. So my go-to. Um, and now I've realized, my relationship with food, I just so appreciate it every day. Food loves me. Yes. And food loves me. Yeah. Um, so for instance, I wake up in the morning and I am look today like I have this new bulletproof coffee and I can't wait to go make it. And it's the only coffee that I've tried that really agrees with my digestive system and doesn't make me all jittery. So I love it. It has MCT oil in it and I put a little, so like this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Like I get it. Like I wake up and my mind goes to, okay, ooh, I get to go have my coffee. So excited about that. And then I'm excited about my little piece of sourdough toast,
Mm.
like with my Kerrygold butter. Like so excited about it. So excited about this one little piece of toast and my coffee because that's all I want right then and there. And just the reason why I'm saying this is just really this is just I'm describing my relationship with food, right? Today. And then it goes on like that. What am I gonna have for lunch or what are we gonna make for dinner? And we're eating we are eating really cleanly now, and it's been fun because it's like we're exploring new ways of eating that we feel like I'm talking about myself and my husband, thinking of our health and wanting to feed our bodies like more green. So I'm excited about cooking in a way that I've never been. I'm excited about eating these clean foods in a way that I've never been, and at the same time not making those other quote unquote other foods bad. And I do remember raising my kids like, this is bad. Don't eat that. This has toxins in it. This has, and even my son who struggles with, I say struggles because these are his words, struggles with his weight. He gets real thin and fit, and then he gained some weight back. And so he's now in that cycle. And he's like, he said to me the other day, Mom, you really told me that food is bad. These foods are all bad, and I have all these things. And what can I say, except I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know I'm on that journey as well. So if there are people that you love that are struggling, send them to Timothy, send them to me. We have been through it. And we got to the other side where I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but just from my conversations with you, we are in that space of loving our bodies and making peace with food, not making any foods bad. And that's a journey. It is because I still get caught up in it sometimes and go, oh, that's too much sugar in that, especially to my husband, right? Trying to control what he eats. Like, I always have to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, honey. No, that's none of my business. It's not my business." But yeah, I love that place of not making any food like sugar, like out to be the devil and all of that. Like if I have something with sugar in it or white flour, because it doesn't agree with me sometimes. That's a story I have, so I keep getting evidence for it. Then I just like backpedal and say, okay, well, oh yeah, this is not bad. It's just something I choose to have right now or not choose to have. And just take all that judgment out of it and shame out of it. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, where I am today is just really wanting, I have a desire for more and more. There's always more love for my body, more peace with food, and just seeing it. I know that it's an unfolding and it's a journey, and it keeps on getting better. It's not like I've arrived. I have nothing else to learn. I always have more to learn.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing what a bit about how the journey has shifted for you thus far. It's really, it's always cool to hear how things have shifted for you, and I know you're continuing to shift things actively, as you just talked about. Real quick before I share a bit about my experience, I just wanted to speak to what something else Vanessa said. She said, "I've not enjoyed controlling the aspects of diets, the constant thought about what to eat, etc. It drove me insane, and so I gifted myself peace, but I still need to work on loving the physical vessel as it is right now." So, yeah, I mean, that's been a huge part for me too. And because how my journey has changed is that I always was really fit. Like, I was a gymnast as a teenager, then I went into bodybuilding. I did a lot of bodybuilding stuff into my like early to mid 30s, and then I just kind of got tired of like the same exercises all the time. I just kind of became boring, and I just didn't have the same drive. And so because of that, my body began to shift. And you could say it's the stories that I have, because we have all these stories of like, if I don't exercise, I'm gonna gain weight. And again, we could go like super deep into these conversations, because in metaphysics, everything is about energy. And so if you have a belief, you're gonna get evidence of it. So if there's still a belief in me that says, if I don't exercise so much, I'm gonna gain weight, then
Mhm.
based on how the universe works, I'm gonna get evidence that that's true, because that. So there's, and I don't want to overwhelm anyone, because there are a lot of beliefs, and it is a journey. I found it to be a
Mhm.
journey to process, just the way Rhonda's talking about. And so gentleness, patience, compassion go a long way. And not getting into this like, oh my gosh, I have all these beliefs and I don't want them anymore, and I have to get rid of, like, that can be overwhelming in and of itself. So it's just more like, what's helped me is just like slowing down, like, and as Rhonda's been sharing, like, how can I love my body where it's at? And I do this, like, every time I take a shower, like, I look in the mirror and I just see the way my body is now, which is different because I have, gained some weight because I don't exercise the way I used to. And I just look at what I see in the mirror, and I do, like, the stories that come from culture show up, kind of like, oh, you're not supposed to look like that, and like, and blah 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 blah, you should look like this. So I just kind of see the stories, I just let them rise up a little bit. And I also just, I let them be there, but then I choose to like be really curious about what I see in the mirror, and I just go like, is there anything really wrong about this? Like, do I have to make this wrong? And so I bring a lot of curiosity, and I just, and I go, what if I can just like, love what I see? Like, this is a human body. This is an aspect of nature. Technically, this is a nature organism. So what if I can just not let myself get caught up in all these rules that I learned earlier in life, and just say, I love this piece of the earth that I see in the mirror, because it is technically a piece of the earth. Like, how can I love this earth creature that I see in the mirror? And so I just bring more curiosity, and just like, again, how can I love it where it's at now? And I am working on shifting beliefs that, tell me that if I don't work out, so much so and so, like, I do want to shift those. But again, I'm not in a rush. And the thing that really has shifted the most for me is that, just no matter what I see, I am just, each day, kind of like Rhonda has shared, like, each day I'm just like, how can I just bring acceptance to where things are at. How can I love, what I see now? Because that is releasing the resistance. And again, because we're talking about metaphysics, anything we push against energetically, we actually add more power to. I'm not meaning this to be a pun, but we actually add more weight to it when we resist anything energetically, when we're saying, no, I don't
Mhm.
want this, go away, you're not okay. Like we actually add intensity to whatever that is. So if I'm pushing against my appearance, the whole subject of appearance and my energy actually will start to feel more heavy because I'm pushing against the appearance rather than saying, the other option is like the loving, the compassion, like, okay, this is just where we're at. How can I just love where we're at? That you can probably notice the difference in my energy. The pushing against is like, whereas the
Mhm.
like just loving is like, oh, it's just that release. It's like, and so that's what I found with my body because it has changed as I, haven't exercised like I used to. And then with food, it really just was again these higher levels of consciousness that I have found in all the different channel teachings that I've resonated with, which is just seeing, again that we're all a part of nature, so everything is an aspect of, you could say, source energy. That's one way of saying it. You could say everything is God, you could say everything is nature, everything is existence. And so I've also worked on just making peace between just this whole thing of food and myself, and again seeing the stories. I'm like, do I really want to say this is bad for me before I eat it? Like, is that really the
Mhm.
story I want to go with? Or is it like, I choose that I want this to nourish me. I choose that I want to enjoy this as I eat it. I want to be mindful in the way. So again, you can probably sense the energetic shift even as I talk, because it went from kind of like
Mhm.
what Rhonda was, bad, harmful, I shouldn't have you, but I want you. So it's like this push and pull to like, okay, if I'm going to, if I am going to eat you, like I'm gonna make it a nice thing. Like I'm gonna energetically choose to like,
Yeah.
enjoy you. And you can probably just even tell, even just when I just went to I'm gonna embrace you, enjoy you. Like I felt that immediately the energy shifted. All
Mhm.
of a sudden it was like,
You could feel it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you can feel it, and that was that was the thing. I just remember because it just happened yesterday. My son was like, "You you gave me some weird ideas about food." Oh my gosh. And like, yeah, I know. I know. Because back then I was like, the energy, you could feel it, right? What is that energy? This is bad. Don't eat it. And as to now, like you reminded me the other day, like you will just choose to think, well, if you're going to eat something,
yeah,
quote unquote, with sugar or whatever it is, whatever you said, right? And then so then I have this story, right? Story. I understand that. It's just a story that gluten doesn't agree with me. So I did the thing that you said, and I was out with some friends, and I had a slice of pizza. And but before I had it, I was like, I blessed it. Like I said,
yeah,
this is just so yummy. It's gonna be so yummy, and it's gonna agree with me. Like, and I had no problems with it. And so it's just interesting to try that. I mean, generally, I kind of stay away from it because that's my choice. It's my choice to do what feels better. So what feels better, and just to what you were saying about acceptance, body acceptance. I mean, I work with some people that there's no way that they can accept their body right now in this moment, right? They're like, what's one thing that you appreciate about your body? I don't know. One thing, just one thing. I I can't think of anything. I just hate my body. And I get it. I understand that because I have been there. So then, well, what's something that you appreciate out in the world? Or maybe it's your puppy or your niece or the sun or what's so we start there. Think of one thing or two things or three things that you appreciate. And then eventually we start with the body. Well, I appreciate my hair or I appreciate my beautiful nails, or and then little by little they're starting to appreciate little things about their body. And that's that's where how you start. If you can't even fathom the idea of appreciating and loving your body. I mean, step 2 in my book is start a love affair with your body. But everybody starts at a different point. Some people already love their bodies, some people can't even imagine it at all. So you got to start where you are, and there's nothing wrong, but we're moving towards accepting the what is, and at the same time envisioning what we want. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like, sounds like a paradox, like how do you do those two things at the same time, accept while also visualizing what I want? But yes, it is possible, and it's a sweet spot to be there. Like, yes, I'm accepting more and more this body that I have right now, and at the same time I know there are some things that I want. There are some things I want to change, and not being attached to this has to happen now, and having
Yeah.
that resistance like you're talking about.
Yeah. 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 Thank you for adding that. It feels like oh my gosh, like I mean, I just have to say this has been the most live interactive broadcast I've had thus far. So thank you for all the comments, and just know that your comments will stay there. So anyone else that comes across, I was telling Rhonda before the episode that these um these broadcasts, they mostly get watched as a replay. So just know that anyone else who watches the replay will be able to see your comments and what you've been sharing, what you've learned. So again, thank you, Vanessa and Jill and Catherine. Just know that all the perspectives that you've been sharing in the comments, anyone else who watches this might also be able to get something from your comments. So just know that your
Mhm.
comments very well will live on and most likely help others. So thank you for everything you've shared. Again, it feels like Ron and I could probably, sit here for the next 3 hours and keep going, because obviously it's, you can tell there's a lot to this subject, and Ron and I have been at this for a long time, and so it may sound, as we talk about some of this stuff, it may sound easy. And what I've just learned is
Mhm.
that, like, anytime, I mean, so again, like, if you talk to an accomplished pianist who's been doing it for 25 years, they're probably just going to talk about everything like it's so easy because they've been at it for a long time. And so it may sound easy to us, and I'll just offer that, again, based on what I know about Rhonda, we've just been at this energy and perspective and having more self-awareness and shifting our we've been at this for a while. So like when we share, it may sound easy, and in truth, like this is something we both do like every day. Like it's just a commitment we've made to ourselves, which includes better understanding energy and how energy works and the power of our story and our consciousness, all of that. So like this is a deep commitment for both her and I, because I've talked to Rhonda a bunch of times, so I feel like that's true based on what I know about her. And so like if you're watching, you're like, well, it sounds easy, but even in this conversation, you mentioned a lot of angles we have, and it's just from our journey, what we've seen and experienced. And this is why we show up as people who mentor others in terms of energy and consciousness and awareness and releasing resistance, because this is an ongoing thing. This is every day, right? Like we're interacting with a body every day, we're interacting with food every day. It's an ongoing thing. So that's why we show up, because we've been at it for a while and we've learned a lot. We're sharing like snippets here of what we learned, and just know, because it is like a pretty big part of our lives.
Yeah.
This is why we we do show up as mentors for others and have things like sessions about energy and resistance, because it's like each person's having their journey, right? And it is going to look different. So feels like we could go on for another 3 or 4 hours.
We
However,
could. We literally could.
yeah,
But
because
I want to go buy some sneakers for my trip to Colorado.
yeah,
I've got to go find some new sneakers,
yeah,
and I'm excited about that because we're gonna go hiking
yeah,
and all that, and I have the rest of the day off, so I'm
yeah,
excited. But yeah, I
yeah,
love the interaction, and
yeah. And
uh,
thank you, Elizabeth, for being here as well. Um, yeah, thank you to everyone who's watched live and interacted. Super appreciate it. So yeah, having we've definitely covered quite a bit. We did get to share a bit about how our journey has shifted, even though I know there's a lot more to that for you and I. Just for now, any closing words you'd like to leave anybody with on the live or on the replay?
oh, Yeah, just start by focusing on going within. All the answers are within you. So start maybe taking 5 minutes and just sitting quietly and seeing what guidance you will get, and maybe not in that moment, maybe just getting still. Start there, and then just start thinking about what are some ways that I uh, can practice alignment, because that's really what it's all about, is your alignment and your steadiness and your vibration. So whether it's food or alcohol or gambling, I mean, it doesn't, or just living in this in this life, right? You don't have to have any sort of addiction to anything. It's just living. How do you manage your emotions, and how do you begin to love yourself even more? These are just wonderful questions to start to ask yourself. And then, as a result of asking, you will begin to notice, some guidance that you're getting. And it's really just, you don't have to see the whole picture, just like do the next step. When you receive some inspiration, guidance. And until then, just chill until you receive the inspiration.
Mm.
Have more fun.
Yeah.
That solves everything. Just adding more fun into your life.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. And I just want to make this clear. I'll make this statement. I feel like you probably would agree with me, Rhonda. Like, I'm not by any means saying that I'm like a nutritional expert or anything like that. And I don't feel like Rhonda would say that's what she is either. What I do know, based on my own life experience and how I have mentored people, just to essentially what I do in my mentoring, and I feel like this is what Rhonda does too, is helping people feel better, like in the moment,
Mhm,
just like work towards feeling better and releasing that resistance. So I'm a mentor in terms of energy, consciousness, understanding the power of our beliefs, our stories, and how that can create a lot of resistance. Because ultimately, what I see is it's the resistance to anything and everything that causes us to feel so off in the moment.
mm,
But built up resistance can also start to manifest in the body in different ways, like just, neck aches and stress headaches, like all these stuff. So I am just someone who understands energy and how energy works and the nature of our consciousness and stories and beliefs. So I help people again find the clarity, find the answers within so they can start to feel better now. And from that feel better place, more answers again from within them. I like to say from their own soul intelligence start to become clear ways that they can feel better and move in a feeling better way in their life. That's what I do. And I feel like that's what you do as well, Rhonda. Just like we just kind of have different methods, right? But would you say that's essentially what you're doing as well?
absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
because all your power is in the present moment.
Yeah.
So r we don't really deal so much with the past or the future, although but something from the past can come up and is active in your vibration now, or a worry about the future can come
Yeah.
up, because it's so dealing with whatever is active in your vibration right now to feel better in the moment. So yes,
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah, and that's just where I see the answers come. That's where I see
Mhm.
people get their own clarity, and I know that, as Rhonda said at the beginning, she helps people get their own answers, whether you want to call it inner being or soul or intuition. It's all essentially the same thing. We just, give it different terms. It's just that inner knowing that just knows better than a lot of these beliefs that are floating around in our mind that don't feel so good that we picked up along the way. It's like heart intelligence, heart coherence. There's a bunch of different ways you can say it, but it's just that
Mhm.
feel better knowing that comes from love, as Vanessa mentioned. She found the loving source within. So again, whether you call that God or creator or whatever, it's connecting back to the loving presence, and that's when it gets easier. So
Yeah.
that's what I found, and I see other people finding that too. And I feel like that's what Rhonda's been sharing in her own words. So, yeah, if you'd like to learn more about either of us, in the description of this video, you'll find links to each of our, ways that you can find out more, ways that you can connect with us. So Rhonda's website is in there. And yeah,
Oh.
just thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, anyone that wants to, I have a free course called Love Your Body
Mhm.
and Love Your Life. Love Your Body, Love Your Life. And it is really cool, and you could get it for free right now. You just go to deliciousalignment.com/resources, and you'll see it there. And it might be a tool that can help you start feeling better right
Mm.
away.
Awesome. Awesome. After we conclude the broadcast, I'll make sure to go back and update the description. I'll put that link in the description just so that people have easy access to that as well. So thank you so much for joining me, Rhonda. Clearly, I feel like this is very relevant to a lot of people. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
glad we dove in and just shared a little bit of our insights. And yeah, just thank you for being here and diving in with me. It's been great. Seems like we tapped into an important one for people.
Absolutely. It is.
Mm. All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah. Thank you again to everyone who's watched live. Thank you to anyone who watches on the replay. Feel free to leave comments on the replay as well. I love to see what people get from these heartfelt shares. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see some of you again soon. Much love.
Thank you.